everybody is doing swell and staying narcissism in the workplace, you guys. We're definitely going to be doing a series because you guys know that this is a huge topic. This is something that's pretty prevalent, unfortunately, in most job environments, most work environments. And just a heads up, I just wanted to do a disclaimer. I'm not bashing jobs. I'm not bashing, your boss or anything like that. We're just going to be kind of highlighting, narcissism in the workplace because it definitely does exist. Hence, you guys know that I did just actually come out with my new ebook called Employee to Entrepreneur. Excuse me, tips on surviving a toxic work environment, which is actually something that I have firsthand gone through, personal life experience. And I definitely wanted to kind of talk to you guys a little bit about that. But before we do get into it, my name is Joy. I am a narcissist abuse coach. I've been dealing with narcissists since 2006. And since 2017, I have been helping former victims, now survivors, heal, move on, and recover after dealing with narcissistic abuse. So, before we get into the topic, I did just want to kind of touch on my new ebook, which I'm super excited to share with you guys. Now, if I be honest, you guys, the process on what I was dealing with while I was writing that book was a trip because I was actually still at the job that I used to work at. I was still there while I was working on the book, but there not only were there things that happened this year, but it was things that occurred last year. So it kind of led to me writing this book. And really, it's for people that that work in jobs. Maybe they feel like they need to stay. Maybe they are, maybe have been applying for other jobs and just can't find another one. Maybe they're just comfortable. Maybe they don't want to start over. Some people have fear of the unknown, and things of that nature where it's like you have to stay there, or maybe you just feel like that's all you want to do. Maybe you feel like you don't want to do anything else, which is fine. Maybe you just want help navigating your current job, your current career field, or the things that you do now. I would highly recommend getting that book for sure. It's definitely going to help you, give you advice, give you tips, give you guidance on how you can, stay sane when it comes to, being around a toxic boss or toxic coworkers and toxic environment. Me myself, you guys, it's so weird because the last job that I work, what was really kind of put the, what did they say? Put, it was the cherry on the top. I feel like, I mean, I'm 36 and there has not been a job that has not been toxic. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that. Let me know if any of you guys ever experienced narcissism in the workplace. I would love to know. But I felt like, well, let me take that back. I would say there was maybe one, two, maybe three jobs out of all the jobs that I've worked thus far that have, well, yeah, I would say for the most part, they have all been toxic. But one job in particular I worked at called JC Penney's. I'm sure you guys know about JC Penney's. I worked there back in 2009 and, well, 2008. And I actually was there for about 4 years. I think that was probably like the longest job that I've ever worked. And I feel like I like that job because, I gained friends there. There was some toxicity going on, like in the end, but overall I ignored it just because, again, I worked with my friends. I worked with people that I also went to school with. So it was actually kind of cool. But I would say from 2013 up until really like going forward, because around that time I was definitely doing like other, gigs and things like that. Hello, Cooking with Bash. So I was doing other gigs, doing like entrepreneurial stuff, network marketing, things like that, and kind of having this platform with YouTube and or anything of that nature, right? But I would say for the most part, most of the jobs that I've ever worked have been toxic. Now, as far as narcissism, I feel like, because let's be honest, like I didn't really know what narcissism was until, living with my auntie. After I went no contact with her, I went no contact with the male narc. So at that point in time, I started that opened up my eyes to like, hey, there is narcissism out there. You get me? And so, um, after having that experience, I think I was just kind of like, hyper aware of what that could be. Hello, hey. And make sure you guys chime in. What's you guys' mental health check today on the scale of 1 to 10? Mine is a 9. So let me know, and let me know also, you guys, what are your plans for Memorial Day? Is anybody doing anything exciting for Memorial Day? Let me know. But yeah, and so I feel like the time, I was working at a job. It was actually a factory. It was like a plant factory back when I used to live in, but a lot of the issues were, lack of training, right? People don't want to train you properly. They just throw you out there. They request you to do overtime, things like that. And it's just a lot of gossip. There's a lot of drama, coworkers talking about coworkers, that kind of. Also, just having a job that sucks, a job that, is just boring, a job that doesn't have any growth, a job that doesn't, provide you with much opportunity to advance or whatever, just kind of staying stuck doing the same boring mundane thing in a job that's like kind of was about the job that I worked at in 2020. um the guy boss, I don't know, something to me always felt weird about him. To me personally, I had a lot to do with race, I'm not gonna lie. Racism is pretty big in Illinois, especially the town where I was at. You see a lot of Confederate flags, things of that nature. But I don't know. It was just weird. I felt like he treated me differently than other coworkers. I felt like, he treated the Caucasian people differently than, people that were like non-Caucasian, that kind of thing. It's unfortunate that's a prevalent thing, right? What else? Yeah, and then okay, so here's the thing. So how I kind of figured that there was narcissism in the workplace. So some way, somehow, they had a switch in bosses, right? So one of the bosses ended up transferring. So they brought this new person over. And mind you, you guys, the boss that came over from one side of the plant to the plant where I was at, there apparently were complaints about this lady. They said that, she would say racial slurs. She was definitely biased. She was prejudiced and things like that. So I don't know what it is about me, but whenever I'm around new people, I always can kind of pick up off of their energy. I can kind of like see through them, or I can like feel, what's going on. And I definitely felt like something was off about this lady. And it wasn't just me. There was other people around. They were like, yeah, it's something about this lady, they just didn't like, or they just felt it was a bit off, like not genuine. And lo and behold, this lady, she comes over to our side of the plant. She's bossy. She's only speaking to like the bosses. She doesn't even acknowledge the employees. She is like saying, hey, you need to get this done. Hey, you need to do this. You need to do that. Just very rude. And then if we need help like on the line, she'll only come in and do like little work because it makes her look good. A lot of narcissists only help out, or they'll only support you because they can go back and say, hey, I did this for you. Hey, I did that for you. You should appreciate this. You should appreciate that, that kind of thing. And I remember there was another time where I was asking them for time off. I was wanting to use my PTO. And I remember the male boss, like I said, I already knew something was off about him, so I wasn't tripping. But again, I did feel that this other female boss, that she could have been a narcissist. So I was saying like, hey, I want to use my PTO because my shoulder was feeling kind of different because of the task that they had us doing. It was repetitive. So, sometimes you might need a break, right? Because they was kind of like overworking us. And so she was like, oh, did you experience this? How long has it been going on? And they were doing like this whole interview. And I'm like, meanwhile, I just want to use my PTO. There's no reason for a whole interview for a PTO. Like, so I don't know. To me, it was just really weird. And then I had this girl. She was like the head of the line. She was Caucasian again. And I know I have Caucasian watchers, so shout out to you guys. So, but I have a whole variety of people. So shout out to everybody. But I'm just highlighting, what I felt was for sure racism, but definitely narcissism, right? But so I was like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom or whatever. And she was like, oh no, you can't go right now. And I'm like, well, why not? It was like, I think the shift was just starting. A lot of times they like to misuse their power. They like to try to abuse their authority, you know, and things like that, take advantage of their authority, take advantage of their power. So, you know, you do have a lot of that going on. So I really did want to highlight that. And then also the fact, so the most recent job that I actually was working at, that really inspired me to write the book that I wrote. There was a lot that went on. I'm not going to talk about everything on this video because, like I said, we're going to do a series of this topic because a lot of people, I'm sure, may be dealing with this now, or they might deal with this, or you know someone else that could be dealing with this, and it's going to be helpful, like I said, so that way you can make sure you stay cool, calm, and collected in these type of environments, especially if you feel like you need to be there. You get me? But yeah, so the last job that I worked really inspired this book. And on top of that, was crazy, you guys, when I was dealing with all of this, you know, there was a lot of like harassment at this job. There was like a lot of bullying. There was mean girls. There were favoritism, a gossip, of course, drama. And it was just, it really was not right. And it was almost kind of as if it was like it was accepted. You know, a lot of these toxic environments is accepted. And again, I'm not saying all jobs are like this, because all jobs are not. You have some jobs that are actually cool. You have cool bosses, you have cool coworkers where you can go out and actually be friends. So if you have that type of job, I commend you. I want to say congratulations to you, because that's a rare situation. The majority of these environments nowadays, these it's kind of scary, but you have to be really careful. It's almost like a school environment. You know how like certain public schools can't be trusted just because the teachers, they really don't care about the students. They kind of just do whatever because it's a check. They don't care about how the teacher, excuse me, they don't care if the students are actually learning. That's how jobs are, right? Like certain toxic, like the job that I was working at, the people were very, like, it was almost like high school. I felt like I was in high school, you know? And you know, they were it was a competitive environment. But one thing about me, you guys, is so weird, but I'm not a competitive person. If anybody's like, hey, I want to compete, I'm like, nope, you got it, you won. Like, I'm not competing with anyone, that kind of thing. So it was really a bad environment for me to be in anyways, but somehow I was there for 2 years and I survived, you guys, because sometimes when people are in those toxic environments, they do not survive. So the fact that I survived, like, I'm so grateful to God. Like, and I feel like it was only God that helped me survive, because if it was anything else, I don't know what would have happened, right? But yeah, like the job that I was working at, I don't know. And I knew that I was different. And thank you for the heart. I knew that I was different from a lot of the people. And I'm kind of getting that maybe the people picked up that I was different from them. So I don't know if it was more of a thing like they were like, hey, she's not like us, so let's push her out. Or it was very like a mean girl energy, which I'm not a mean girl. I don't want to be a mean girl. Like, that is just not me. Like, you get what I'm saying? So it was just crazy. But I don't know, it was just a weird environment to be in. You know, but like I said, I definitely learned a lot being in that type of environment. And the other thing that kind of was really sad to know is the fact that some of the people, not all, but it was a sales job. It was a direct sales job. And I know how some people feel about sales. Some people are like, oh no, don't try to sell me anything, or oh no, things like that. So me personally, how I view it is, okay, there's a problem and then there's a solution. You get what I'm saying? So my mentality was definitely different about how I thought about, you know, when it came to sales. But, you know, you have a lot of people have been programmed to believe that sales is bad, that sales, oh, this person is just trying to get me to get something that I don't want. You know, I'm the kind of person where I'm like, if you want it, cool. If you don't, cool. Like, you get what I'm saying? There's no pressure. But what's crazy about the environment that I was in, they were really big on like, oh, you know, you got to force the customer to get it. And they feel like if you don't make the sale, it's something that you're doing wrong. It must be you. You need more training. You need more coaching and things like that. So it was one of those environments where it was not encouraging. It was definitely something very hostile, very aggressive, very manipulative and cutthroat. And me personally, like, I don't know, I didn't grow up that way. I even learned about, sales and business and things like that. And that was never really something that was taught to me in that way. So it was really shocking to know that, people behave in that manner. But again, as far as, what I was dealing with when it came to dealing with narcissism in the workplace at that particular job, it was a lot of, um, it was just really, it was loud, it was chaotic. The bosses were very like two-faced. It was almost scary. It's almost like, how you're in a toxic relationship and you want to break free from it, right? You know how we talk about breaking free from the narcissist, working at a toxic job, having a workplace that could be full of narcissism. It's almost like you're walking on eggshells, you guys. That's how I literally felt like when I was at the job. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, and it's almost you don't want to say anything, you don't want to do anything that's going to offend anybody, because like you're just there to like do what you got to do and go home. You get what I'm saying? When it comes to a toxic work environment, it's more of a thing where the people, they feel like if you are not fitting in like them, if you're not behaving like them, then they don't want you there, or they're gonna like either bully you or to try to manipulate you or try to make you feel bad, or maybe they try to give you all the work, or like, you get what I'm saying? So you guys have to let me know. Like I said, we're going to talk more on this topic, but just understand that there definitely can be narcissism in the workplace. And if you are dealing with narcissism in the workplace, it just depends if, you want to stay there, you can. I know I stayed at a toxic work environment for 2 years, longer than I should, but I definitely learned a lot about it. And I gained a lot of lessons, a lot of experiences, and I dealt with different types of people. Because what's crazy is, even though that environment was toxic, not everybody was toxic there, but the important people, the people that mattered the most, they were the ones that were cutthroat, they were aggressive, they were two-faced. And so not only was I dealing with all of that while writing this book, but I was also in a living situation which was toxic too, to where, that individual tried to take advantage of the situation. And I didn't allow that to happen. So that was also a form of toxicity that we'll talk about in a later video. But you guys have to be careful. And I'm saying all this to say, when you have a relationship with God, like, although your intuition will tell you something, maybe your intuition is saying like, hey, leave this job. Or maybe your intuition is saying, hey, you might want to move away from this type of living situation. Or, hey, something is just not right. I would say listen to it. Or even if you need advice or you just need that nudge, don't be afraid to reach out, you guys. Don't be afraid to go and look for another job. Now, I'm not telling you to quit the job that you have now. I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying, you might want to make a plan, so that way when you do quit, you won't just be kind of jumping out on a limb. You get what I'm saying? So you might want to like plan it out. Maybe you might want to start saving, doing some things that you need to do, so that way you can leave on a good note. Now, me myself, because of the mistreatment that I went through, it didn't end on a good note, unfortunately. But I was okay. I was safe. But I mean, I left in silence. To make it a long story short, I left in silence. So it wasn't like any drama involved or anything like that. It was really like chill, very peaceful. But while being there for that time, it was not chill. It was not peaceful. It was so much happening. And honestly, like I said, we'll do another video. I feel like there was an individual there that actually targeted me and was actually trying to hurt me, and got a group of people to try to pretty much target me as well. And so, that type of stuff happens in a toxic environment. And that, is narcissism at its finest. So, be careful in these toxic work environments. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you guys at this point. I mean, this is just me. This is me, my experience. I mean, I really wouldn't recommend a job like if after everything that I've been through. I mean, I know sometimes you have to do what you got to do, but at this point, it can be kind of dangerous. It really can be if you think about it, like the type of people that you can run into. Not saying that you have to be scared, not saying that you have to, hide under a pillow. I'm not saying that, but the types of people that you can run into, you just don't know. You get what I'm saying? And so sometimes your life can actually be in danger. Like when you're around a narcissistic person, your life is in danger because for one, this person is not really in their mind. They don't care about you. They only care about what they want and what they can get. And you really could be in a really harmful situation. Like I said, I'm just glad that I was protected and that I was safe. Now, one of the things is I would say I wish I kind of would have left a little sooner. I wish I would have left that environment sooner, but different situations, different scenarios. I guess I was there for a reason. But it was a lot. It was a lot. And the book, it took me, I want to say like 2 to 3 months or maybe 4 months, but it was a lot that I was dealing with, you guys. I talk about everything that I experienced working at really all the jobs that I've worked at and how it's really shaped me into who I am today. Like I said, I'm not bashing jobs, by the way. I'm not bashing, whatever. I always tell you guys, I don't tell anybody what to do. I never tell anybody what to do. I only give my recommendations based off of what I've experienced. And like I said, most of the time there will be narcissism in the workplace. And it's sad. It's sad because it shouldn't be that way. People should be able to go to their jobs, go to their careers, go to their work environments and be able to get along, do what they need to do and go. But unfortunately, it's not like that. It's not like that. And people are being mistreated. People are being done unfairly. People are being sabotaged sometimes by bosses, by coworkers, by jealousy, by envy. Some people don't want to see other people get promotions. And I actually had it to where there was two of my upper management. And here's the thing, you guys, like when I was at the job that I was at, I did not want to be there. Who wants to, I mean, like, let's be honest, like, unless you really love your job, most people don't. But like what's crazy is like one of the bosses asked me, they were like, "Hey Joy, do you want to do this, like this little training or whatever?" And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Like I didn't go to him like, "Hey, can I do this? Can I do that?" It wasn't even like that. One of the bosses approached me. And what's crazy is like two of the upper management ladies, they were like trying to sabotage me on that same day and say like, "Oh, you did this wrong on the call. You did that wrong on the call." I'm like, bro, like, I don't care about this job. Like, you get what I'm saying? So it's just little stuff like that. Like that's something that needs to be dealt with, like jobs or bosses that are cutthroat and trying to like undermine people and stuff like that's like, bro, like I thought we were a team. Like. But we're going to talk about that in another video. And to me, I found that to be a lot with the females. Like the males, I didn't really have issues with the males as much at the in all the environments, but it was mainly females. Now some males in work environments, they can behave like females. Like some of them can get emotional or they may get jealous of a female, or whatever, which is kind of weird. It's like, okay. But you do have that going on, but be careful about narcissism in the workplace, you guys. It can be a lot. It can be a lot, you guys. But I recommend read my book. It might can help you or someone else. Like I said, I just share my experience, what I've gone through, and maybe it can help you or it can help someone else. Because it's difficult. It's difficult. Because a lot of times people are working these jobs for many, many years, and actually where I was working at. there was a new management that came in, and this is how I knew. I was like, yeah, I gotta get out of here. It was because of the fact that people that were working there for 15 years, 20 years, they were literally resigning, and they wasn't really doing that until there was new management that came in. I was like, oh yeah, I got to get out of here. You know, so that at those times it could be a point where you might have to get creative, you know, and sometimes you may not know how to be creative, so that's why you want to reach out, get some support, get some advice on how you can, you know, get creative, you know, how maybe you can do your own thing. And that way you don't have to deal with that stress. You don't have to deal with the drama. You don't have to deal with the craziness when it comes to these work environments. So anyway, you guys, I love you so much, but we'll definitely follow up on this video because it's definitely prevalent. Unfortunately, it's also prevalent in schools too. Like in school environments, there's narcissism, but the workplace is important because like the whole point of going to school is so that way you can get a job, career, work, and pretty much a lot of times the things that people do with their life is work. Like they work, and so the fact that you have to deal with a narcissistic boss or narcissistic coworkers, that's sad, you know. And what one of the things that I noticed, especially if it's a toxic work environment, the people that cause the drama, nothing happens to them. Like a lot of the times, you know, they are the ones that get away with a lot of stuff and nothing happens to them unless they do something really crazy. But a lot of times they get away with, you know, like mistreating people, or they abuse their power, they abuse their authority, or they're able to talk down on individuals, which that happened to me. That definitely happened to me, but we'll talk about that in another video. But anyway, you guys, I love you so much, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye, guys.